Have you ever felt that there's a version of yourself that's tired of living like a boy? You might not say it out loud, but you feel it deep inside, a silent, persistent discomfort. The truth is, no one told you that becoming a man isn't automatic, it's a choice. And many spend their entire lives waiting for the world to transform them, when in reality, the world only tightens until you break, or wake up. This audiobook is for those who choose to wake up. Here's a controversial truth most people never admit. Most of your pain doesn't come from the world. It comes from your own running. Running from effort, running from responsibility, running from the mirror. And the more you run, the harder life hits. Not because it hates you, but because it's trying to push you into your identity shift. The boy runs from pain. The man understands pain is a disguised teacher. And here's something counterintuitive. Being disciplined is easier than living without discipline. Sounds crazy, I know. But look at your life. How much time, energy, and peace have you lost due to lack of self-discipline? Chaos costs more than order. And when you finally structure your habits, something interesting happens. Your mind rests. Your energy rises. Your inner strength starts to appear. Timid but real. Before we continue, understand this. No one is going to transform you. Not a mentor, not a motivational video, not a course, not even this audiobook. The only force capable of moving you is already inside you, waiting for you to stop living as a background character in your own story. The world respects the man with masculine purpose, not the one who makes empty promises. And that purpose is what you will learn to awaken here. Now get ready for something uncomfortable. You're not behind in life. You've just been living on autopilot. Wake up, work, distract yourself, repeat, with no direction, no awareness. But within that cycle there's a flame that never died, only got buried. The mental toughness you think you don't have is already there, sleeping beneath layers of fear, laziness, and distraction. This audiobook won't give you pretty phrases. It will give you harsh truths. It won't offer shortcuts. It will show real paths. And if you've listened this far, it's because a part of you already knows you need to change. You feel it, even if you pretend you don't. The question is, are you ready to face who you really are and destroy who you've been? Maybe yes, maybe not. But one thing is certain. After what comes next, you will never look at your own life the same way again. And it's in this quiet turning point that the journey begins, the journey that separates the boy you were from the man you were born to become. There comes a moment in a man's life when he realizes that the boy he carried inside no longer matches the weight of his own ambitions. It's as if the world looks at him and says, either you grow or you get left behind. In that silent instant, the need for a real identity shift is born, an inner movement that demands true mental toughness. A mentor watching from the outside understands. It's not about age, but about decision. And that decision begins on the exact day someone accepts that comfort has become too small. The man who decides to leave the boy behind understands that illusions of ease were never a solid path. He realizes that self-discipline is not punishment. It's the key that opens doors the boy could never reach. It's curious. Many people wait for courage before acting, when in reality it's acting that awakens courage. And that's why this process hurts. Because it demands letting go of who he was to walk toward the masculine purpose that has always been calling him. A calling that, once heard, can no longer be ignored. Imagining this process as a crossing helps a lot. The boy is used to quitting at the first obstacle, but the man learns that inner strength only grows when he stays, even when everything tells him to leave. The mentor knows this crossing can be done gradually, trading an hour of gaming for an hour of reading, trading complaints for written goals, trading impulses for conscious choices. These are small daily actions, but they strengthen the new self that is being born. Many people think that killing the boy is about becoming cold, distant, or inflexible. But it's exactly the opposite. It's about assuming emotional responsibility, understanding limits, having clarity. The boy runs from pain. The man understands that pain is part of the path that leads to maturity and purpose. Self-discipline appears as a kind of anchor in this process, because without it everything collapses again. And the more he practices, the more he realizes that this discipline is the cement that sustains his transformation. In difficult moments, the inner boy tries to return. He whispers, "Relax, leave it for tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes for someone who lives like that. The mentor knows that mental toughness isn't born in comfort. It's born in discomfort, in sacrifice, in persistence when no one is watching. Sometimes, leaving the boy behind means doing simple things. Waking up earlier, training even when tired, studying even without motivation. The man learns that acting without motivation is precisely what sets him apart from the rest. When the man recognizes the weight of his own story, something shifts. He looks back and understands that his childish version even tried, but didn't know how to sustain his own dreams. Now, however, there's awareness, there's direction, there's masculine purpose. And this purpose demands more mature choices, aligned with who he wishes to become. This is the point where identity shift begins to crystallize, when he stops acting from impulse and starts acting from vision. Perhaps the clearest example of this process is found in everyday life. A man who decides to truly grow begins organizing his life like someone who organizes a home, throwing away what no longer serves, cleaning what is dirty, fixing what is broken. He trades empty friendships for conversations that elevate him, impulsive consumption for investments, noisy habits for practices that create peace. And without noticing, he builds an inner fortress, his true inner strength. At this point, he understands something crucial. No one will hold his hand. The boy depended on approval. The man learns to navigate by his own north. When someone connects with this new force, they realize that self-discipline stops being a burden and becomes a privilege. And even when the world pressures him, he doesn't return to old patterns. He knows each firm step strengthens his masculine purpose, preparing him for the greater challenges waiting just ahead. The mentor observes all this calmly. He knows the process doesn't happen overnight, and that every small internal rupture is an essential part of the rebirth. The boy inside him doesn't disappear easily. He resists, trying to preserve old comforts. But little by little, mental toughness settles in, and the man learns to walk on his own feet. And as this happens, a door to the next level begins to open quietly. And then, when he finally realizes no one will fight his battles for him, an inevitable awakening rises. He understands that an entire life is waiting for his adult, strong, determined version. This calling hits hard, almost like a warning. There's more, but only for those willing to abandon who they once were. And as this understanding grows inside, a new desire forms, a desire that will lead him directly toward the next step of this journey. There's a striking difference between the boy and the man, and it has nothing to do with age. The boy runs after comfort. The man runs after purpose. While the boy wants life to spare him, the man understands that life spares no one. A mentor watching from a distance knows that this identity shift does not happen by accident. It is born from accumulated frustration, repeated falls, and truths that arrive without asking permission. And each truth pushes a person toward the maturity he avoided. The boy runs from effort because he believes effort hurts. The man embraces effort because he knows effort frees. To the boy, any challenge feels like punishment, but the man sees challenges as the staircase that leads him to his masculine purpose. He realizes that mental toughness is not about being tough. It's about being consistent. And this consistency is born from simply trying again when most people have already given up. That's the difference that separates the ones who dream from the ones who build. In many cases, the boy complains about the weight of responsibility, while the man carries it naturally. The boy expects someone to fix his life. The man understands that no one is coming to save him. When a person begins discovering his inner strength, he realizes that taking responsibility is not oppression, it is freedom. And that freedom has a price, abandoning the habit of blaming the world and starting to build his own path, step by step. If you want to see this in practice, just observe those who grow quietly. The boy lives on excuses. I can't. I didn't have time. One day I'll do it. Meanwhile, the man adjusts his clock, adjusts his plan, adjusts his route, but never abandons the journey. A mentor would say that self-discipline does not arise in big events, but in these daily micro-movements that, when accumulated, transform an entire life. And this accumulation creates a strength the boy never had the courage to experience. There's also a difference in desires. The boy wishes to be seen. the man wishes to be fulfilled. While the boy wants applause, the man wants evolution. And this shift in focus is one of the most important parts of the identity shift, because it pulls him out of the stage of comparison and places him in the field of construction. The more he walks this path, the more he realizes that the need for approval was nothing but insecurity poorly disguised. The boy lives trapped in the fantasy that life must be easy to be good. The man understands that life is good precisely because it is not easy. This perception requires mental toughness, because not everyone is ready to face the truth that maturity will never feel comfortable. But when he faces this reality, something inside him awakens, a kind of strength that doesn't depend on circumstances, but on posture. And this posture begins to appear in every daily choice. One of the clearest changes is how each deals with time. The boy wastes it, the man invests it. While the boy procrastinates, the man organizes priorities. And when he structures his day with purpose, he discovers that self-discipline does not steal freedom. It creates freedom. Reading 20 pages a day, training for 30 minutes, reviewing goals weekly. Small actions like these become bricks in the life the man wants to build. The boy also has the habit of running from discomfort, while the man goes toward it. Not because he likes pain, but because he understands that it is there his inner strength is forged. He knows that all growth requires deconstruction, and that each renunciation is part of the architecture of maturity. When he embraces this, his life stops being impulsive and becomes intentional. And this intention leads him to the next challenges. Another clear difference is the relationship with identity itself. The boy wants to be something. The man wants to be himself. This transition requires a deep identity shift because it involves breaking labels, abandoning masks, and recognizing his own shadows. But when he does this, he finds a masculine purpose that is stronger, more aligned, more honest. And this inner honesty becomes the engine behind his decisions. And finally, there is the silent movement happening inside him, the realization that living as a boy costs more than growing into a man. When that truth hits, he understands he can no longer return to what he was. He feels, almost instinctively, that something greater is waiting for him up ahead. And as that awareness matures, he begins approaching the next truth life will place before him, a truth that will completely reshape his understanding of pain and character. Pain has always been misunderstood. Many see it as an enemy, but a wise mentor knows it is the forge where true character is shaped. When life applies pressure, it's not trying to destroy you, it's trying to reveal you. It's in that friction that a deep identity shift begins, because no one matures while everything is comfortable. Pain is not cruel. It simply shows who you really are when no one is watching. It's interesting how the inner boy tries to run from any discomfort, while the man learns to look at pain with respect. He realizes that mental toughness doesn't grow on peaceful days. It is born in the silent chaos of inner battles. That workout you do when tired, that difficult conversation you face, that habit you finally abandon, all of it is sculpted inside pain. And each of those battles creates scratches that become invisible medals. Pain functions like a strange teacher who never announces test dates. It shows up when you least expect it and demands answers you don't yet have. But it is precisely in that moment that you discover your inner strength. A mentor would say pain is like that honest friend who doesn't sugarcoat anything, but pushes you to be better. And as uncomfortable as it may feel, that push often saves an entire life that was heading in the wrong direction. When you go through a loss, frustration, or failure, the boy inside tries to shout, "See, this hurts. Stop trying." But the man breathes deeply and understands that pain is simply refining his vision. He realizes that self-discipline isn't only doing what needs to be done, it's continuing even when pain tries to stop you. And this movement makes the world look at him with a silent respect, the kind only those who've been hit by life understand. A great example is seen in people who achieved something remarkable. There isn't a serious entrepreneur, a disciplined athlete, or an extraordinary artist who didn't go through seasons of pain. These people transformed every scar into fuel to keep moving. They understood early that pain is a kind of password granting access to the next level of the journey. And the stronger the masculine purpose, the clearer it becomes that running from pain is running from destiny itself. Pain also exposes what you must abandon. It reveals weak relationships, destructive habits, limiting beliefs. It's like a spotlight illuminating everything that was hidden from you. A mentor would show that this discomfort is valuable. It separates what you want from what you truly need. And through that process, the identity shift deepens, because no real transformation happens without the break of old patterns. Each time you face something difficult and choose to keep going, a layer of the old boy dissolves. It's a silent process. No applause, no posts, no witnesses. But you feel it. You feel yourself stepping away from the fragile version and moving toward the version finally strong enough to carry the weight of your own story. And that's how your inner strength grows, discreet, but unshakable. Pain doesn't create character alone. It simply reveals the raw material you're made of. What truly shapes you is how you respond. If you respond by running, the boy wins. If you respond with courage, the man is born a little more. And the more you respond with courage, the stronger your mental toughness becomes. It's almost as if pain opens small doors to new levels of maturity, and you choose to walk through them one by one. Some say pain destroys, but in truth, it only destroys what needed to be destroyed. It removes the excess, the superficial, the illusion. What remains is what is real. When someone goes through suffering and returns wiser, more focused, more aligned with their masculine purpose, that is not coincidence, it is refinement. Pain removed everything that didn't belong in the adult life. And it is in that moment of clarity that something begins to happen. The understanding that pain is not the end, but preparation. Preparation for more serious choices, bigger responsibilities, and heavier challenges. And as this perception settles, a path begins to open toward the next great revelation, a revelation about the true cost of avoiding growth. Complacency is usually silent, almost unnoticeable, and that's exactly why it destroys so many people. An experienced mentor knows it disguises itself as well-deserved rest. I'll do it tomorrow, or temporary comfort. But behind that disguise, there is a thief of potential. The person who accepts complacency slowly loses their own identity shift, because returning to old patterns is always easier. And the easy path always charges the highest price. The cost of this comfort starts small. Unproductive days, postponed goals, loose decisions. But these small slips become mountains when accumulated. The inner boy says it's okay to relax, but the man knows self-discipline is the only antidote to that downfall. And the more he gives into comfort, the further he gets from the masculine purpose that should guide him. It's like a muscle. If unused, it weakens. Many people only notice the price of complacency when they're already behind in life. They look back and see wasted years, missed opportunities, abandoned projects. The feeling of regret is heavy. They realize mental toughness didn't fail because of lack of talent, but because of lack of attitude. And at that moment, they understand the world never respected intentions, only results. Complacency, in turn, delivers nothing but empty results. Complacency also weakens the internal strength they are trying to build. Inner strength doesn't grow from excuses. It grows from facing what needs to be faced. When someone repeatedly says, "I'll deal with it later," they stop building the mental foundation necessary for growth. A mentor would explain that this isn't just laziness, it's self-sabotage. And that self-sabotage creates a cycle where each day makes it harder to regain control. For those who need something more concrete, imagine a simple example. Someone who decides to train every day. Missing once doesn't seem so bad. Missing twice becomes a pattern. Missing 3 times means the rhythm is lost. Complacency works the same way. It starts as an exception, becomes a habit, then becomes identity. And once it becomes identity, the person loses the identity shift they were trying to build. Another important point, complacency weakens the sense of responsibility. The boy always believes he'll have time later. The man knows time is a loan, not a guarantee. The one who waits for the right moment never realizes that the right moment is always the moment he acts. When he doesn't act, his masculine purpose gets suffocated under layers of postponement that only grow thicker. And growing while standing still is impossible. Complacency also produces a cruel illusion, the illusion that the problem isn't that big. The person thinks they can easily recover lost time, as if paying off a late bill. But life doesn't work with emotional invoices. Every day without action is one less brick in the construction of the life they want. And rebuilding later always requires more strength, more mental toughness, and more sacrifice. When someone realizes they're becoming a background character in their own story, something begins to bother them. They feel their self-discipline weakening, their motivation fading, their rhythm slowing down. That's when a mentor appears, sometimes in the form of advice, sometimes in the form of a failure, and says, "Either you take back control now, or complacency will swallow you." The emotional price of complacency is high, too. It creates anxiety, guilt, frustration. The person knows they could be further ahead, but they aren't. This gap weighs heavily on any man's mind. And as he acknowledges this, he realizes he must recover his inner strength, rebuild his consistency, and regain direction before complacency becomes permanent. It's the kind of pain that doesn't hit the body. It hits the conscience. And it is exactly at this point that a new decision begins to rise. He feels he cannot continue like this. He senses that if he gives in to one more day of laziness, he'll lose something inside himself that he may not be able to recover later. And as this realization grows, the question that leads him to the next step begins to form. The question about what it truly means to carry the weight of being a man. The responsibility of being a man has nothing to do with speaking louder, being the strongest in the room, or carrying an invincible posture. A wise mentor knows responsibility reveals itself in silent moments, in what no one sees. That's where the true identity shift is born, when a man realizes his value lies in what he sustains, not in what he displays. And to sustain anything in life, he needs much more than muscles. He needs a moral backbone. Being a man is keeping promises, even when tired. The boy promises in excitement. The man promises in awareness. He understands that self-discipline is not an optional skill. It's an internal obligation. When he says he'll do something, he does it. Without motivation, without applause, without anyone noticing. The mentor knows this kind of posture is rare, but it is precisely what defines a solid masculine purpose. Responsibility also appears in the small habits. Waking up on time, keeping your word, organizing your space, paying bills on time, being honest with what you say and what you do. Every small action strengthens a man's inner strength. It's like training an invisible muscle that holds his entire identity. And the more he practices, the more natural it becomes to choose the right path, even when no one is supervising. Another essential point is the ability to carry emotional weight without unloading it onto others. The boy explodes, victimizes himself, creates drama. The man breathes deeply, thinks before speaking, and accepts his impact on the world. This doesn't mean swallowing everything. It means knowing how to express without destroying. A mentor would say this is one of the greatest signs of mental toughness, because it requires courage to face your own shadow before blaming the rest of humanity. Being a man also means seeing what needs to be done and simply doing it. Not waiting for orders, not waiting for motivation, not waiting for divine inspiration. If the house is messy, he cleans it. If work is piling up, he handles it. If someone depends on him, he shows up. There is no glamour in this. There is responsibility. And this responsibility, when sustained daily, turns a man into someone reliable, respected, and unavoidable. Responsibility also shows up when a man takes ownership of his own mistakes. The boy looks for excuses. The man looks for solutions. He doesn't justify his fall. He gets up better. This behavior reveals a profound identity shift because it shows he is not committed to his image. He is committed to his evolution. And this internal shift reflects in every area of his life. In relationships, responsibility becomes even more evident. The man doesn't manipulate, deceive, or play games. He says what he feels, listens to what the other person says, and acts with integrity. He understands that a promise carries weight, trust is sacred, and presence is commitment. A mentor would explain that this posture not only protects those around him, but also strengthens his own inner strength every time he chooses truth over impulse. There is also financial responsibility, something many avoid. The boy spends impulsively, the man plans. He saves, invests, studies, thinks about the future. When he recognizes the importance of this, He realizes self-discipline is not just for the body or mind, it's for the entire life. And the more he organizes his finances, the freer he becomes. Freedom is one of the core pillars of masculine purpose. In moments of crisis, responsibility becomes even clearer. The boy panics. The man seeks direction. He may feel fear, but he doesn't surrender to it. He analyzes, adjusts, learns, reacts. This conscious reaction requires mental toughness because facing storms demands more than physical strength. It demands inner strength. And that inner strength is built through years of small correct choices. And ultimately, it is this responsibility that opens the way to the next level. When a man treats his life seriously, the world begins to treat him differently. He realizes that the more weight he carries, the more prepared he becomes for what comes next. And as this new awareness settles in, an inevitable question begins to rise, a question that leads directly to the next step of his transformation. There comes a moment when a man feels a silent discomfort, almost like an inner calling that can no longer be ignored. He realizes he cannot keep repeating the same patterns, the same excuses, the same weaknesses. It is the beginning of a powerful identity shift, that point in the journey where he understands that growing hurts, but staying small hurts far more. And this discomfort is life's invitation to transformation. This calling appears in the details, in the regret when looking back, in the feeling of wasted time, in the quiet frustration of knowing he could be further ahead. The mentor knows these feelings don't appear by accident. They are clear signs that the soul is tired of living below its own potential. Mental toughness begins to form the moment the man decides to listen to that calling. Even trembling, even insecure, even lost. Transformation begins with simple but profound actions. Reading 10 pages a day, walking for 20 minutes, cleaning the room, drinking more water, fixing posture, turning off the phone during the first hour of the morning. These small actions awaken dormant self-discipline. The boy finds this boring. The man knows this is the foundation of any serious change. And when he begins doing the minimum with excellence, the maximum no longer feels impossible. The calling to transform also demands emotional courage. A man must face his flaws with brutal honesty. Laziness, pride, procrastination, impulses, vices. Not to self-punish, but to finally transform. A mentor would show that this phase is cruel only to those who try to avoid it. When he agrees to look inward, something unlocks. His inner strength wakes up, ready to rebuild him from the inside out. In this process, he realizes that his masculine purpose is not born by accident. It is built, brick by brick, habit by habit, sacrifice by sacrifice. Each right decision forms a new fragment of this evolving identity. A man only finds purpose when he is willing to lose the old version of himself. It's like shedding skin, uncomfortable, but necessary. The calling to transform also emerges when he notices that old behaviors no longer match his new desires. Superficial conversations tire him. Toxic environments irritate him. Distractions lose their shine. He realizes he no longer wants to live numb. He wants to live awake. This awakening is the clear sign that the identity shift is becoming inevitable. For many, transformation begins with fatigue. Fatigue from being inconsistent. Fatigue from disappointing themselves. Fatigue from accumulating broken promises. Life speaks loudly when exhaustion arrives. It is as if it says, either you change now, or you will be forced to change later. And forced change is always more painful. The mentor knows. The ones who choose transformation voluntarily grow faster and more completely. This calling also appears in the body. Insomnia, irritation, mental exhaustion. It's not weakness. It's a sign that he is living out of alignment. The self-discipline he tries to avoid is exactly the bridge that will bring him back to center. When he reconnects with healthy habits, he notices his energy shifts, his posture shifts, his mind shifts. The body never lies about the state of the soul. Transformation strengthens when he understands that no one will deliver a ready-made new life. There's no savior, no miraculous mentor, no magic technique. There's effort, courage, resilience. There's mental toughness being built with each difficulty faced. And when he realizes this, emotional dependence collapses. He walks more firmly, trusting his own inner strength. And it is at this moment that something begins to pulse inside him, the awareness that the next step will be decisive. He senses he is being prepared for a greater warning, something about time, urgency, and direction. And as that intuition grows, the path leads him directly to the next truth, the one that reveals that life waits for no one. Time is the only resource no one can recover, yet it's the one most people waste. A wise mentor watches this with a certain sadness, because he sees strong men being swallowed by small distractions. He knows the clock doesn't negotiate, doesn't wait, doesn't make deals. Every minute lost represents a piece of the identity shift that could be taking shape. And those who don't learn this early end up paying a high price later. Time doesn't speed up for the hurried or slow down for the lazy. It moves steadily, unbothered, indifferent. While some use it as a tool for evolution, others treat it as if it were infinite. The boy lives as if he had extra lives to spare. The man knows he has only one. And that understanding requires mental toughness, because realizing the finiteness of time is frightening, but also awakening. It's common for a man to recognize the value of time only after losing much of it. He looks back and sees years wasted on vices, distractions, delays, and empty conversations. The mentor would say this isn't failure, it's a warning. Life is showing that, from this moment forward, time must be invested, not consumed. And that is the first step toward building real self-discipline, not just desired discipline. For those who want a practical example, just observe the difference between someone who acts and someone who only thinks about acting. The man who makes decisions moves forward even without knowing everything. The boy who waits to know everything never leaves the starting point. When he decides to begin today, not Monday, not next month, something shifts inside him. Every action taken now brings him closer to his masculine purpose, while every delay pulls him further away. Time also reveals priorities. Wherever a man puts his hours, he puts his life. If he puts it into social media, he lives other people's lives. If he puts it into study, he builds his own. If he puts it into training, he strengthens his inner strength. If he puts it into distractions, he weakens his essence. The mentor always says, "Show me where you invest your time, and I'll show you who you're becoming." Another important detail is that time charges interest, and high interest. Everything postponed today becomes more expensive tomorrow. The health he neglects now will cost time in hospitals later. The discipline he abandons now will cost time trying to rebuild what fell apart. Understanding this requires maturity, because the boy only thinks about immediate pleasure. The man sees the long term and acts with awareness. The awareness of time passing awakens a powerful feeling, urgency. Not anxious urgency, but conscious urgency. The man realizes that, if he doesn't change now, he may wake up in the future as a shadow of what he could have been. It's a quiet pain, but a transformative one. And that pain creates movement, discipline, focus. It builds the mental toughness that pushes him to the next level. Time also shows who is growing and who is merely existing. While some accumulate experiences, others accumulate regret. And regret is always heavier than effort. The mentor knows that a man with self-discipline doesn't fear the clock, because he knows every hour invested correctly builds a life worth living. Life begins to respect those who respect their own time. It's interesting how, when a man starts using his time well, results appear quickly. He changes his posture, improves his energy, increases his mental clarity. Opportunities start showing up because life reacts to movement. None of this is coincidence, it's consequence. And as he organizes his hours, he organizes his identity, strengthens his purpose, and awakens his inner strength. And it is precisely in this moment, when he finally understands the value of time, that a second awakening appears. The realization that discipline is not effort, it is identity. And as this awareness settles, the path leads him directly to the next point of the journey, where consistency becomes the key to transformation. The commitment to discipline is the point where a man truly separates himself from the boy. While the boy depends on motivation, the man depends on purpose. He understands that self-discipline is not a mood, it's a daily decision. A wise mentor knows this decision marks the beginning of a deep identity shift, because from that moment on, every action stops being accidental and becomes intentional. Discipline is the root of transformation. Discipline does not start strong. It starts fragile. It begins with small choices that seem insignificant. Waking up on time, drinking water before coffee, making the bed, studying for 20 minutes. The boy thinks these actions are silly. The man knows they are mental toughness exercises that forge his mind. And the more he commits to these small practices, the more his inner strength grows, quietly but steadily. The commitment to discipline also means accepting that results won't come quickly. It's a patience game. The boy wants instant rewards, but the man understands that building takes time. This understanding keeps him steady when no one is watching. A mentor would say, "Discipline is doing what needs to be done even when no one knows and no one praises you." That's how character is formed. For a practical example, imagine someone who decides to change their body. Motivation is strong in the first week, but disappears in the second. What sustains their training is not enthusiasm, it's commitment. They train even when tired, even without excitement, even on bad days. This behavior reveals a solid masculine purpose, because it shows discipline does not depend on emotion, but on values. The commitment to discipline also shows in how a man manages his time. He knows every poorly used hour steals from his future. So he trades distractions for productive habits, trades impulses for conscious decisions. This organization isn't rigid, it's liberating. Every well-applied minute brings him closer to the life he wants and further from the boy he needs to leave behind. Discipline demands difficult choices, and this is where many quit. Letting go of certain company, limiting phone use, reducing momentary pleasures. All of this seems like sacrifice, but it's investment. A mentor would explain that eliminating excess is the fastest way to strengthen inner strength. The more he cuts what is unnecessary, the more room he creates for what truly matters. One of the secrets of discipline is understanding that it doesn't depend on willpower, but on structure. If a man wants to read more, he needs a fixed schedule. If he wants to train, he needs his clothes prepared. If he wants to save money, he needs to control spending. Structure removes unnecessary decisions and makes the path obvious. And when the path is obvious, the habit holds, even when motivation disappears. The commitment to discipline also strengthens identity. Every time a man keeps a promise to himself, he reinforces the identity shift he is building. He begins to see himself as someone who executes, not someone who merely intends. This change in perception creates confidence, maturity, and direction. It is how an unshakable internal image is formed. Discipline also protects the man from his own fragility. On bad days, it carries the weight. In chaotic weeks, it keeps him centered. In moments of doubt, it guides the decision. Self-discipline is essentially the psychological armor that allows a man to endure storms without losing focus. Without that armor, any wind knocks him down. And as that discipline strengthens, the man realizes something deeper. Discipline doesn't only transform what he does, it transforms who he is. It creates a new rhythm, a new posture, a new worldview. And as this new identity takes form, the final question of the journey arises, the one that will place him in front of the mirror for a decisive choice. The mirror never lies. It shows exactly who you are when no one is watching. A wise mentor knows that this moment, facing your own reflection, is decisive in any man's journey. There are no excuses, no masks, no distractions. Only you and the truth. And it's in this truth that the final stage of the identity shift begins, admitting where you are and deciding where you truly want to go. Facing the mirror is uncomfortable because it reveals the distance between who you are and who you said you would be. It exposes empty promises, postponed goals, weak habits. But it also reveals potential, silent strength, fragments of courage still alive inside you. This contrast hurts, but it's exactly this pain that awakens the mental toughness needed for the next step. The mirror also shows the cost of staying small. It shows the life you will have if you keep choosing the easy path, the life of procrastination, indiscipline, stagnation. But at the same time, it shows the life you could have if you embraced real self-discipline. This duality creates internal pressure that no mentor can impose. It rises from within, from your own conscience. It's interesting how, throughout life, we avoid the mirror not because of our appearance, but because of what it symbolizes. The boy prefers to look anywhere except at himself. The man, however, faces the reflection as if facing a worthy opponent. He understands that his inner strength grows only when he admits his weaknesses. And admitting weaknesses is the first form of real strength. The mirror also shows old choices that no longer fit. Empty friendships, harmful habits, impulsive behaviors. It is there that the man realizes part of his masculine purpose requires abandoning old versions of himself. He understands he cannot walk toward the future while dragging the weight of the past. And in that understanding, a heavy silence is born, the silence that comes before a massive decision. For something more practical, think of the mirror as a control panel. It displays indicators: low energy, lack of discipline, excessive distractions. If this were a business, you would fix everything immediately. But when it comes to yourself, many prefer to ignore it. A mentor would say, if you don't manage your own life, someone or something will manage it for you. The mirror also reveals something most people overlook. You always knew what needed to be done. It was never a lack of knowledge. It was a lack of execution. It was never a lack of potential. It was a lack of consistency. And when this truth is finally accepted, a more mature, conscious self-discipline emerges, aligned with the identity shift you've been building since the first step of your journey. It is also in front of the mirror that a man realizes his biggest enemy was never the world, it was himself, his excuses, his limiting beliefs, his deeply rooted fears. But it is precisely at this point that his inner strength begins to pulse more intensely. He realizes that if he was capable of creating his own limitations, he is just as capable of destroying them. The mirror, however, does not offer choices, it demands them. It forces the man to decide whether he will remain a background character in his own story or finally rise to the throne that has always been reserved for him. This throne is not made of glamour, but of responsibility, discipline, and purpose. The mentor sees this moment as a sacred ritual, the birth of the man who finally embraces his masculine purpose. And it is precisely at this moment, in the encounter with his own reflection, that the journey reaches its peak, a moment where the world seems to pause, waiting for his decision. And as that decision takes form within him, a silent yet powerful question emerges, a question that will open the door for the introduction of this story, where everything begins to connect. Now that you've listened to this entire journey, the question that remains is simple. What will you do with all of this? Because it's useless to feel inspired for a few minutes, and then return to the same habits that imprison you. The world doesn't change through desire, it changes through action. And it's in your hands to decide whether this will be just another piece of content you heard, or the exact moment your identity shift truly begins. Are you willing to abandon the old version of yourself? To let go of the boy who lives on excuses, who avoids the mirror, who steps back when effort is required? Because if you're not, nothing you heard here will matter. But if you are, you can completely transform your life. The mental toughness you need is already inside you. You just need to stop ignoring it. Look at your routine and ask the question every man must ask. Is this bringing me closer to the man I want to become, or further away? If the answer is further away, you know what needs to be done. Cut excess, adjust priorities, eliminate distractions, reinforce self-discipline. Don't wait for motivation. Motivation is unstable. Build structure. Build patterns. Build consistency. The truth is that no one is coming to rescue you. Not destiny, not luck, not the universe. The only safe path is to take control of your own narrative. And when you do, something shifts instantly. The world begins to treat you as a man, not as a boy. That's the moment masculine purpose stops being a distant idea and becomes a force guiding every decision you make. So let me ask you, how many more years are you willing to lose living below your potential? How many opportunities will you continue to let slip because of fear, laziness, or distraction? How much of your own life will you waste before finally looking in the mirror and saying enough? This is the moment. Not tomorrow. Not Monday. Now. If you truly felt something in your chest while listening to this audiobook, then this is the sign you were waiting for. Start small, but start today. One reading, one workout, one habit, one decision. Every act adds up. Every choice strengthens your inner strength. Every step brings you closer to the man you were born to become. And if you want to continue this transformation, learn more, strengthen your discipline, and grow mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, then join our circle. Subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and continue the journey with us, because the boy is gone, and the man has finally awakened.